As we patiently await for real news about Bond 26, here is my ranking of the 6 official Eon James Bond actors. Coming in at number 6 for me is George Lazenby, who only did one movie, the 6th James Bond movie, On Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1969, only because he never did more than one. That's why he goes in the last place for this. Coming in the 5th spot for me is Roger Moore. I don't really care for Roger Moore as the character spy in general. But like I said in one of the previous videos, I will give him a lot of swell credit for being the only actor to do it 7 consistent times. 7 consistent times in the part, not to be confused with the 15 years that Daniel Craig did it for only 5 movies. But yeah, coming in 5th spot for me is Roger Moore. He's just not my Bond. That's just how it is. Yeah, so George Lazenby in last place, coming in the 5th spot. Roger Moore, Roger Moore is just not it for me. All right, now. The middle part of this whole list was really the most difficult, hardest part for me to figure out here on who I would put in 4th place and 3rd place. But after much contemplation of thinking, in 4th place for me is going to be, and I hate to say this, I would have liked to have had him higher on the list for me here, but for 4th place of ranking the James Bond actors, and I would have maybe liked to have seen him been a little bit higher for how this all is. I'm going to have to go with the 21st century's Daniel Craig. Yes, while his first movie, Casino Royale in 2006, is excellent, is very, 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 choose your adjective. Outside of Skyfall, his movies kind of went downhill from there. And he also wasn't really into playing the character. He wanted to get out of playing it as soon as possible, yet sometimes did a whole 10-year run of 15 years. And he, in my opinion, only had 2 out of 5 good, swell movies. Only 2 out of the 5 movies, for me, I consider, well, I've said, the praise is for Casino Royale and Skyfall as 2 out of 5, but then his 2nd, 4th, and 5th movies, at least for me, have a lot to be desired. So as much as I want to keep Daniel Craig higher than the 4th spot, for that he is chosen then in the 4th spot, Daniel Craig. And for my 3rd spot, I'm going to have to go with Sean Connery. Similar to Daniel Craig, he wanted to get out of this part as soon as possible, yet somehow Daniel Craig does 5 movies, and Sean Connery does officially 6. Only Roger Moore really, really does 7. And so, similar to not being passionate into the role, for 4th spot Daniel Craig, he's not into it as much as he could be. Same for Sean Connery, and that's why they're in the middle part of this list. So that's all I really got to say as far as that's concerned. Daniel Craig in the 4th spot. Sean Connery the 3rd, though on some weeks and years they could maybe switch with each other. But at least this recording, as of September 2024, Daniel Craig is ranked 4th and Sean Connery is 3rd. And now for my 2nd spot, I'm going to have to go with Timothy Dalton. While he only did 2 movies, he really played the part well, and some can say that he is the most Ian Fleming accurate way of all the Bonds and the way he portrayed it. Unfortunately, he didn't have much humor to his part, but even in only those 2 movies, he did a really, really, really choose your adjective type job. And so Timothy Dalton, I have to say, at least in this September 2024 ranking, is my number 2 pick. Well, that only really leaves one actor left, and for this, I'm going to have to say, the reason I'm choosing Pierce Brosnan as my number 1 spot is for a few things. First of all, he was almost cast sometime in the 80s when Roger Moore might have been replaced, but because of his being locked into his TV show, Remington Steele, he didn't get the chance then, and then instead it was Timothy Dalton. But once he was Bond, and by the way, Pierce Brosnan is the only James Bond movie actor to have an incredible decade to himself. There were no other James Bonds before or after him in the decade of the 1990s. Now, had Timothy Dalton played Bond after 1989's License to Kill, he would have maybe had a movie come out in most likely either 1991 at the 1991 at the earliest, or 1992 maybe at the latest. But he wasn't ready to go any more in the part by the time it became 1994. So, Pierce Brosnan is my favorite James Bond because the way he plays the part, he's like a combination of everything before him while also putting his own take on it, especially how he does the lovemaking, especially how he does his representation of how he deals with all the other characters and whatever the case may be in all things of that. Pierce Brosnan for me, it kind of similar to Daniel Craig, kind of went downhill after GoldenEye, though I actually do have a soft spot for The World Is Not Enough, and there's much that can be said at another time or in a private conversation about what everybody thinks about Tomorrow Never Dies and Die Another Day. Yeah, it's a shame he never got a fifth movie, but at the number one spot for my ranking, Pierce Brosnan to me should have got a fifth movie. He was the only James Bond actor not to be able to leave the part on his own terms, and I just thought that even in his lesser movies of his four, he was so consistent. He was so consistent, so swell in the way he played it in all four different movies. Now for Daniel Craig, it feels like he played it also differently in all of his five. But I wanted to have Daniel Craig higher on this list. I don't care for Sean Connery because I really only like two of his movies, From Russia with Love and Goldfinger. But I have enjoyment in some way, shape, or form in all of the four Pierce Brosnan ones. Shame we'll never get him back. Pierce Brosnan to me will be my top Bond of these six, and that's all I got to say about all that. And now let me get ready to film my last video of today, which you'll see in the title right after this one. But yeah, these are my ranking of the James Bond actors as we patiently await real news, not fake news, Tomorrow Never Dies, for Bond 26. A quick recap, they are from 6 to 1, George Lazenby, Roger Moore, Daniel Craig, Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, and Pierce Brosnan. Support your local movie theater throughout the decade of the 2030s to see big movies on the big theatrical screen, because if you don't, they're going to be on a home release way soon after that in these days, because streaming movies online at home is just not the same thing at all. Everybody dance and have a good time. This is Millennial Man Motions. Everybody dance and have a good time. This is Millennial Man Motions Entertainment, LLC, signing out to the last video of today.